All right, so the next thing we're going to do, finish up with, is talking about scheduling and how do you pick what to grow and how to schedule it. And that's the dynamic part of Dianthus. Probably the most dynamic part is because they're energy machine, and within a given range, you can use supplemental lighting, you can use temperature to develop these. And then there's also a spread of genetics. So we're just going to kind of go through some of the different variables that you have when you're trying to figure out how to schedule it. So we have some branded products that Selecta has branded. And the reason we branded these two genetics is because they are so naturally early to flower. They're very easy for many growers in all regions to hit Valentine's Day. So we decided to focus on the easy button. And so this is what this is all about. This is a early genetic, ideally suited for Valentine's Day. I Love You, very compact and very free flowering. And then Early Love, again, a little bit more vigorous, but again, that very early timing. If you want to not do a branded program, our Oscar family, which is really nice because it's sport-based. And you see several of the pictures you saw of these co-production in Europe, James had and I had. These are different growers growing Oscars. This is the one that you see the most as a series grown. And it's very useful in the fact that the uniformity makes it all the colors balance evenly. It's very compact and very early. So it's really ideally suited for those early opportunities.
Just a mention on the Oscars, Gary, before we go on. I mean, if you want to make colorful combinations for an earlier season, using Dianthus, the Oscars are your series, right? Since they're sport-based. It's something that we can do with a sports-based series where you can put multiple colors together in the same pot and they will balance out, right?
And that being said, so are the Diodors. So these are another sport-based series. And the idea is Diodor, the magenta white, the original, we wanted to mutate this and bring other bicolors, and they're all fragrant as well. So they're nice, they're early to flower, bicolor and fragrant, a little bit more robust and vigorous than an Oscar. But again, these nice sport-based families are super easy to grow as a grouping. One of the newest product for us is Capitan, which is just, it brings the scale up to a larger 8-inch and beyond pot. So we're really excited about this one. It brings some cuttable stems. So it's just a whole new genre, very much a North American style product versus the small pot, 10, 12 centimeter pot that dominates Europe. We think this one can get some traction. And then this one has a lot of opportunity. This is called Vivacia. And really what you can see here in this trial, this is pretty much the series of core colors that is designed ideally in North American speak for a 2.5 quart to 1 gallon product, one plant per, all double flowered, all very traditional looking carnation. So again, a lot of options for different seasonality and also different uses. So you really kind of need to know what you're trying to produce, the pot size, and when. Additional to these pot types, we have a couple of different series of perennials. The Everlast is not a series, it's a collection. There's all different types in there. There's singles and doubles. And again, these are all relatively early flowering, but these are zone 5 hardy perennials, so they will definitely work perfectly in a perennial program, even though they're pretty enough that you could put them into a pot if you wanted to. Pink Kisses, which is the top seller globally, is actually a very nice zone 5 perennial, but it's being sold as a pot because it is so beautiful. So again, genetics will speak to hardiness, but use is open to any of these. You can figure out how to move all of them. New series for us is Pashmina. It's very fun. It's a low growing, almost ground cover type family, 3 varieties. It's very nice. We've had just great results with that so far. So we're very excited about that as a perennial as well. So when you want to talk about scheduling, you've got to look at, we talked about the genetics and what you want to do with it and when you want to sell it. But you have to look at these other factors, regional variabilities. I mean, crop times in Homestead are going to be dramatically different than a crop time in, let's say, Edmonton. They're all very doable, but we have to take into account that there's a lot of regional variabilities. The type of structure, are you on a bench? Do you have bottom heat? Do you have lights? Do you have glass? Do you have poly? These are energy machines. The more light you give them, the more moles you give them, the better they'll develop. So they love bright and cool. Honestly, we had our very first, it's exciting because of the quarantines, we have our very first breeder trial of Dianthus, and we're growing it. The first breed we had is in our Aurora Grande, California location. And in that situation, they've had incredibly cold and funky weather this winter, but these plants have been very, very cold. And but they do get periods of high light, and you can see the strength of these plants, the strength of the tissue is really predicated on the light. We see that in Homestead as well. So there's a lot of variabilities in your region. There's a lot of variabilities in the type of structure. And then, of course, the seasonality. When do you want to grow these things? This can be very different. You can fast crop these in sort of the modest greenhouse regime for a May, June sale. Whereas if you want to get it out the door in February, you're going to have to run a longer, colder regime. And then, of course, you want to try to hit a holiday, you've got the variability of the weather. And so we have a few things we can do to help mitigate that. One of them is supplemental lighting. And you can, if you are trying to hit not naturally early genetic for Valentine's, like Pink Kisses, which is naturally more of a April, May product, can be done for Valentine's Day. We have a lot of growers doing it, but they are adding supplemental light. They're growing at these modest temperatures, and oftentimes using a little growth regulator. And what's very interesting is when you look at the different types of light in typical LED growing scenarios, you're not needing to add the growth regulator because the internodes are staying shorter. But under the HPS lights, the sodium lights, the infrared from the sodium definitely causes some elongation. And so you start to look at using PGR applications, light spray applications in the end. They're really not about controlling the size of the plant. It's about leveling off the height of that flower as it comes up and as you force it through with lights and temperature. So again, you can use lights, you can use warm temperatures. Forcing the color, this is an example of some Pink Kisses that were rolling a little bit behind. They were beautiful plants and they were all budded up, but they just wouldn't turn the corner and the flowers wouldn't open. So cranked up the temperatures, a little touch of PGR, and boom, you've got a lot of color. So again, you can force these guys to hit dates, but just recognize if you're forcing with lights, with temperature, with increased feed, then you get into the possibility of needing a PGR application. But they are forcible. What you don't want to do is grow them contiguously warm, because then they'll just stay vegetative. But you can grow them cool and then force them, up to 68, 70 degrees once the buds are on the plant to pop the color. So you can use these techniques to hit your schedules. So we have on our website, we have these charts. And the charts pretty much talked about what the variety is, the details about it, recommended pot sizes. And they have this little scheduling chart too. And we talked about earlier the different types of growing regimes. This brings into the earlier, very early, mid, and late varieties and when you would plant them to achieve the goal. It looks a little bit confusing, but when you take a minute to study it, it's pretty clear. If you don't want to go down that route, you can simply go into a variety selection tool and you pick the parameters that you want, and it will make recommendations for varieties. So we can continue to develop these tools and bring more of these tools to bear. One of the things that we're going to be doing is going out with a survey of customers to look at when people finished in different regions with the different products, so that if we can get real-time data on scheduling, that's going to help us answer the question. Because in a nutshell, we are very confident. I'm going to not speak for Nathan, but as a grower, not a researcher, Nathan's going to have a higher bar for yay or nays than I do. But as a grower, I'm very confident that we can develop and we will develop no pinch regimes. I have seen direct stick and calloused in a grower in 4-inch and literally booms on it for 4 days and then never touched again until they're shipped. So I know that we have the techniques to grow these things are very resistant and durable and don't prone to a lot of disease and insects. The challenge we have to learn is how to schedule the different types for different dates. And that's and we have tons and tons of product out there right now, tons of trials going, and we just consolidate that data and share that with you. So that will be coming on the website, will be a more crunchy literally by latitude type scheduling tool.
But yeah, I know you and me and Gary definitely keep Nathan engaged and interested in this, making sure that we don't go too far from the rails and he pulls us back in.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, he's done a couple of things that made me scratch my chin too. So he's pretty creative. So some of the stuff he's screwing around with is pretty fun. So I think Nathan will he'll answer questions we haven't asked yet, James, which is always a really good thing.
Yeah. Always a good time.
Absolutely. So I wanted to just finally here as we come to an end, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Also want to take this time to call out our tech team. Ball has a tech team. It's been in development for several years now, and it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of this. We have people, literally experts from all over the world, supporting our efforts. We have a genetics lab in Ball Helix. We can map out and identify strains of pathogens. We have full-time pathologists working at our assistance, and so the Ball Tech team is a wonderful resource. I encourage you to utilize it. We're here for Ball customers, frankly, anybody. And you can see the different ways to connect to the tech team. And then also, if you want to reach out to either the three of us directly, there's our email addresses. But again, thank you all for joining us on this journey on Dianthus.